We are live for a review of AEW Full Gear. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. I thought this was a very good show, Ralph. We're going to break it down match by match. There was some good. There was some bad. There's some stuff in the middle. But I think the majority of people here tonight are saying that that show was very good. And some people even saying that it could be the pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah, I definitely think that they delivered in a big way. I think that all the matches that needed to deliver were able to, please the fans. I think it certainly could be up there in consideration for one of the best pay-per-views of the year, simply for that fact. So, I think overall, great job by AEW and all those involved in this.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, they definitely put it out. And this was such an important pay-per-view because the hype for it was so big. There were so many people that thought that these matches had to deliver, and they definitely did. The ones that had to deliver, I think, delivered. So before we get to the actual matches themselves, let's, let everybody know. Thank you, everybody, for joining us so far on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. If you want to help support the channel, you could donate to the Super Chat Party. Any dollar amount will help, and if you have a question, we will answer it for you when that Super Chat donation comes in. Also, we have merchandise on sale. We're going to do the 10% off discount code SCPB10. Click the link in the description. Also, the pinned comment. You see the hoodie behind me. We have t-shirts. I wore that yesterday on the live predictions. The mugs. A lot of stuff here. So let's get down to the buy-in match. Now, this is for the NWA Women's Championship. Serena Deeb versus Allison Kay. Allison Kay does lose to Serena Deeb with the Serenity Lock. Thunder Rosa comes out after the match. So it looks like we're getting story progression with NWA yet again in AEW. I thought the match was a decent match. I think when it comes to both women's matches, this was the better one, as I predicted. We'll talk about the AEW women's match later on. But I think Allison Kay, for her tryout match in AEW, if that's what it was, I think she did very well. What are your thoughts, Ralph?
I thought this match was okay. I didn't necessarily have really high expectations for this, only because it was on the buy-in. So I wasn't expecting this match to be the best match of the night. I thought that it was, a decent match. I think that Allison Kay did hold up her end of the bargain there and was able to deliver, a decent match there. So it was all right. And then I think the biggest part of this, or the biggest surprise, was Thunder Rosa coming out at the end.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree. And, there's all this talk about where Thunder Rosa is going now that she dropped the NWA Women's Championship. She confirms that she's under contract till 2021. Billy Corgan said the same thing. Allison Kay, being a free agent, the week she calls out the fact that no one in NWA is fighting for the NWA Women's Championship, was interesting. I think the only thing that kind of hindered this match is just the fact that we had no build to it. It was just announced a couple days beforehand. Do you think the lack of build hurt this match at all?
Yeah, and we talked about this yesterday. I mean, if you can get some type of storyline progression, some type of emotional investment, that's always going to mean the match will, perceptually be better for most people. I think that, this is no exception, especially considering it was a title match. So unfortunate as it was, it still was an okay match for a buy-in match. So
right.
No harm, no foul.
I think as far as, trying to get those undecided buyers to commit to buying the pay-per-view, I think it probably did its job. I think the match was good enough for people to go, okay, that match was good. I think the rest of the card that I'm seeing here that they're promoting is going to be very good, if not better. And I think people will be pleased. And I think they ended up being worthy of that $50. But let's head to the next match here. It is the Eliminator Finals. Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. Personally, I was surprised that this was the opening match, personally. Great match. Great opening match nonetheless. I think we got our surprise debut here with Don Callis on commentary, because I don't know where else the surprise debut was. Maybe later on in the Elite Deletion match, but I thought Don Callis' commentary really helped this match, personally, Ralph.
Yeah, I thought Don Callis was very good. I thought it was a pleasant surprise, and I'm interested to see kind of where this goes. I think one of the things that people have been most critical of Kenny Omega for in his run in AEW is just his lack of promo ability. You know, he did cut very good promos in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but that is a very different type of audience. I guess you put it that way.
Right.
Not that he's bad on the mic, but he, you know, there are people that are certainly better than him. I think Don Callis, if they try to work it where he's like his manager, especially if he's going to become this heel, you know, cleaner character, I think that can work out well, especially for him, because there is that dynamic there where Don Callis is associated with a lot of his earlier work in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I hope that happens, but we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people, though, as well, are talking about the possibility of now an AEW Impact Wrestling partnership, as this is like the third or fourth time Don Callis has appeared on AEW television. He was there for the 30-year celebration with Jericho. He was there for this match. He's been in promo packages for this match. Do you see Impact Wrestling and AEW getting together?
Maybe to a small extent. I mean, me personally, I don't necessarily see anybody who could kind of come in and work with some of their top main event guys, at least from like the singles division. They're top guys in Impact. You have right now Eric Young, who is still, you know, he returned not too long ago. You got Sammy Callahan. You got like Ken Shamrock is kind of almost in that upper echelon there in Impact. Eddie Edwards, I guess maybe. So, you know, is any of that actually going to do anything for AEW? I don't think so. I think it would do more for anybody from Impact than it would for AEW. So, you know, I could see Don Callis doing something with Omega, but I don't necessarily see this partnership anytime soon.
I think if anything, it would to get the North as the tag team champions to go to AEW and have some dream matches with the Bucks and FTR and some other tag teams. Maybe even the Motor City Machine Guns, which we talked about a couple weeks back, where FTR said they wanted to face them. Yep. So there's always that possibility too. But let's talk about the actual match itself between Omega and Hangman Page. I thought it was action-packed from the get-go. I think what made this match great was two things. One, the fact that they knew each other and they were countering each other's moves as like a strategy thing, and that was well played in the commentary. But also the lack of false finishes really helped this match. I think there was maybe two in the entire match, and then Kenny got the one wing angel for the win. I thought that really helped because a lot of great matches today that everyone likes to call have like 50 false finishes. You don't need like 1,000 false finishes to have a good match. You could have two and have a good one. And this match did that. This match proved that.
Yeah, and I think there was a couple of things going on here. You know, so Kenny Omega, for whatever reason, there have been people who have been criticism of his work in AEW and saying that he hasn't necessarily lived up to expectations. So him going out there and delivering this type of match with Hangman, I think that was certainly a good thing for him. You know, for the time being, I think he's been able to silence those critics. And, you know, storyline wise, this works into Hangman's credit here because, you know, the story all along was Hangman is supposed to be this tag team wrestler. He's not a singles guy. So going out there, going toe to toe with Kenny, that was obviously good for progressing that storyline and character development. So they were able to kind of kill two birds with one stone there, I think. One that is more of a actual storyline that they're trying to play there with Hangman, and one more so just like from a fan standpoint where some people think Kenny isn't living up to the expectation that was set for him.
Yeah, I think that was well played in the commentary. The fact that Kenny has not been the guy that we've seen in New Japan Pro Wrestling since AEW started. Like people, and they even said that like we have not seen the Kenny Omega from New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think that was actually JR's word for word quote, or maybe it was Don Callis, whichever one. And I love how they both played the fact that they commentated for New Japan Pro Wrestling. They talked about Kenny Omega and his rise between 2016 and 2018 with those matches with Okada, Naito, Ishii. And, you know, if you haven't seen Omega in New Japan, I recommend it because he's definitely not the guy we're seeing in AEW. We're starting to see it. And I think this match, and there was a couple matches that Omega had leading up to this one that you're starting to see what everybody was talking about, where the doubters are like, what are you guys seeing? We're not seeing it. This match, I hope, got people thinking, okay, now I'm starting to see it.
Yeah, and let's not take anything away from Hangman because again, he's more than held his own in this match and proved again that he can be relied upon. He's had a couple of really good matches since his time in AEW, and they aren't all tag team matches. His match with Kazarian was very good, and this was no exception. This was also very good.
Yeah, I agree. So let's head to the next match here. It is Orange Cassidy versus Jon Silver. I thought this match was a fun one. I think it was a fun one. And for what it's worth, it was entertaining, to say the least. What are your thoughts on this, Rob? Because I know people are going to wonder what you thought of this match.
Well, I'll say it this way. If you're a fan of Orange Cassidy, I'm sure this was a match that you really loved. I thought the match itself was fine. I thought it was good for what it was. It wasn't supposed to be a match that stole the show. I think that Silver certainly went out there and showed that he has some personality and can do probably a little more than what he's doing. And I guess I'll relate it to this. So if you think back to Jerry's time in WWE, do you remember the skits that he used to do with William Regal? They were small skits.
Yeah.
But he was essentially allowed to kind of show that he has some type of personality. And that really works quite well for most people in professional wrestling. You don't have to be the best wrestler, but if you have a good personality, that goes a long way. So Silver, for whatever reason, he's got that little cult following, and I think that he can actually expand upon that. Orange Cassidy, I feel like they were kind of going in a direction where they were going to try to push him as a more serious character, and we didn't get serious Orange Cassidy last night by any means. I did like the spot where Jon Silver ripped the pockets off his pants. I thought that was great.
That was awesome.
So it wasn't bad. If you're an Orange Cassidy fan, I'm sure you really like this.
I think what's great about this match, especially with Jon Silver played that classic low to mid card heel that just did what you wanted to get heat.
Yeah.
Ripping the pockets, flexing all the time, really showboating in the ring, and the crowd ate it up. They were booing him like heavy boos during this match. I think his in-ring work was very, very good in this match as well. I think the one spot I got to talk about is the fact that he carried Orange Cassidy over his head with one arm without any effort.
Yep.
That was impressive. And I think the only thing that could hinder Jon Silver in the future is he's short. Let's put it that way. He is short. I don't know how tall he actually is, but he's no taller than 5'10". That would be my guess.
I don't even think he's 5'10".
No, I don't think so either.
If I was to guess, I would think he's probably 5'6", 5'5", 5'7", maybe.
Yeah. If he's 5'6", then me and him are going, eye to eye. We're the same height if he's 5'6". Yeah. So, but it was for what it was supposed to do. It did its job, I think. And there was some comedy in it. I think there was one spot where Orange Cassidy posed with the thumbs up and Jon Silver's face was like he looked very pissed off and was like, you bastard.
Yeah.
It was so good. Jon Silver, someone just said, thank you, King Coheed. Jon Silver is 5'5".
Good guess by me.
Yeah, 5'5" is not going to be a main eventer, but he has his role, and I think he's playing it off well. And I don't think he's a guy that's like, oh man, I should be AEW champion.
It's all what you do with your opportunities.
Exactly.
Every time he's given an opportunity, I feel like he does a good job of standing out. And as long as you got people looking at you and talking about you in the entertainment business or the wrestling business, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So, before we head to the next match, thank you everybody for joining us on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. If you're just joining us, you want to support the channel, you could do so by donating to the Super Chat Party, any dollar amount. Have a question for us, we'll answer for you there. Also, merchandise is on sale. Click the link in the description to get 10% off and use that promo code SCPB10. Again, thank you all for joining us here. Want to give a couple shout outs here to people that are in the chat. Hello to Mario Morales, Darlene Bimbai, King Coheed, Mike, Mr. Mike 307, and Ashlesh Bishay. And if I'm mispronouncing these names, I apologize. Heather Wright is in the chat room. Lee Jones is in the chat room. A lot of people that are big supporters of the channel. Some people that are new to the channel. Again, welcome. Now, let's head to the next match here for the TNT Championship, Ralph. It is Darby Allin versus Cody Rhodes. Darby Allin becomes the first non-WWE wrestler to win a men's singles title. I thought this match was very good. For those that don't know what ring psychology is, you hear a lot of these traditionalists talk about ring psychology. This match was an example of ring psychology.
Yeah, I love this match. I love the pace of it. I love the story it told. I love the psychology of it. I thought that the fact that it took called back to a lot of the things that happened in their previous matches, I thought was very good. I thought that it had a lot of good spots in it that, got you to pop or, jump up if you were there. I'm sure people were jumping up or react without going too crazy. It wasn't like Darby was getting thrown in the body bag spot with the thumbtacks.
No,
the spot where he had him in the hammerlock, I think it was, and threw him to the outside. That was like a oh shit moment.
Yeah.
I thought this match was great. I think that Cody continues to put on good matches week in and week out, and Darby more than held up his own. The thing I'll say about Darby Allin is this. He's a smaller guy too. I think they have him listed as like 175 pounds. But he's so in touch with how he should be working for his size that he makes the matches believable. So Cody Rhodes is obviously much bigger than Darby Allin, but Darby Allin makes it believable because of the way he works in the ring. He does these things where, he'll avoid a clothesline and then he's flipping around you, and it's all about his speed and his agility. I thought this match was great. I loved it.
I agree. You brought up the stuff that Cody was doing to work on the shoulder, the hammerlock to the platform, the avalanche shoulder breaker, the avalanche crossroads.
Yep.
So much stuff there. And this spot, I think a lot of people need to talk about when it comes to the storytelling and the psychology aspect of this match is when Darby hit the coffin drop, he turned his body over to make sure he had like a traditional pin instead of doing on his back where Cody flipped him over last time to win that match in the TNT tournament. And the commentary called it out. That was perfect right there. Perfect execution from everyone all around. That was the icing on the cake for me. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, yes, this was a great match. At that point, I thought it was the match of the night. There's some other matches that come on later in the show that you could make the argument those were better, but this was great. And now that Darby won the title, Darby's the first, as I mentioned, the first non-former WWE talent to win an AEW championship, at least a men's championship. Is this the right move? Should they have gone with someone else before Darby Allin? And do you think he's going to run with the ball now that it's handed to him?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Darby can definitely be one of those guys that stands out and gets to that next level because I think that he's really in touch with that younger fan base. A lot of people talk about Orange Cassidy being this guy that can become this megastar because he's really in tune with, that Gen Y, that Gen Z, whatever you want to call it. And he's the guy. But I think Darby is. I really do think Darby can be a big name in AEW or just professional wrestling in general. Every time he's given an opportunity in the ring, I think he knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
As far as the match itself, like I've talked about with the pace of the match, little things like Cody Rhodes and the psychology of it, he'd beat down Darby and then he'd tell the ref, go check on him. It was like building slowly and slowly and slowly until you got to the end. And the best part about the end is it came from essentially out of nowhere. Like you didn't expect it to end that way. And that's what makes good professional wrestling. Like sometimes it's not about kicking out of 5 finishers and then finally hitting like a crazy spot to get the win. If you compare this match to Kenny and Hangman, which was very good, but that was very fast paced throughout it. This was very much more traditional, slow paced, build until the end. And I thought this was great by both of them.
I agree. What'd you think of after the match with Cody having this like Hulk Hogan passing the torch to Ultimate Warrior like thing? He takes the title.
Yeah.
And Arn Anderson, give credit to Arn Anderson for telling his story. Like, Cody, you messed up. We had a plan and you messed it up. You were showboating. And he was frustrated where Cody's like, no, Darby was the better man tonight. Does the whole thing. And then we have Taz come out. Taz's promo was awesome.
Yep.
Enough with the waterworks. Stop being bitch asses and go in the back. And then we had the beatdown and the save from Will Hobbs. That was great. That whole thing was good. And I'm glad they were able to get Will Hobbs, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks onto the pay-per-view in some way, shape, or form because they needed to be on it.
Well, I think this is also the moment where people were kind of had their ultimate letdown kind of realized, because I think this was the point where you felt like Team Taz was going to get the beatdown in, and then the lights would go out, the lights would come back on, and Sting would be in the ring. That was the assumption. A lot of people felt like Sting was going to show up. I felt like if there was ever going to be a moment where it happened, it was going to be then and there. It didn't happen, but that's okay. It didn't take away from anything. I thought that they were actually going to go ahead with the car door spot and slam his arm in the car. And then they were going to say, okay, well, we got to take the belt off Darby as a quick like transition thing. Like, okay, he's injured. But I'm interested. I want to see where this goes. I want to see what happens with Darby. As long as he doesn't get himself hurt for something stupid he's doing outside of the ring, I think that he can be one of the best guys that they have right now.
I agree. And I Darby's going to have a good run with this title. I think Ricky Starks and him are going to have their TNT championship match, maybe then lead to Brian Cage. This story's not over with Darby Allin, and the sky's the limit with this kid. I'm excited for him. Before we head to our next match, there was a £5, I think I got it right this time, £5 donation to the Super Chat Party
I thought
from
you
Lee.
said it was pound yesterday. Or no, you said euros yesterday. So
I said euros yesterday, but it is pounds. If I'm wrong again, let me know in the chat, because the only currency I know is dollars and cents. But Lee Jones, thank you for the £5 donation. He said Elite Deletion sucked, close to being as bad as Swole Baker at All Out. Super chat at me and prove me wrong, smiley face. So now apparently he's Steven Crowder trying to tell people to prove him wrong. But we'll talk about that match later on. Let's talk about the next match here. And it is the women's championship match. Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose. Hikaru Shida does retain here. I didn't have much expectation for this match personally, because there wasn't much build to it. However, those that were thinking they were going to get that match at Double or Nothing, they didn't get it personally. They didn't get it. I thought this match was easily the worst in-ring match of the night. There were some obvious things wrong with this match. I think there were times where some things just didn't make sense in this match. You have Nyla Rose powerbomb Hikaru Shida, pin her, pull her off the pin, then do Hikaru Shida's finishing maneuver, just so Shida kicks out at 1, or not even 1.
Yeah.
That can't happen. That should have been a 2.5, 2 3/4 kick out to get a pop from the crowd, not a 1 or less than a 1. That was bad. Also, there were a couple times where Hikaru Shida was pinning Nyla Rose, and one particular spot where Shida took herself off the pin before Nyla kicked out. And yes, she tried to sell her knee, which was a focal point in this match. I get that, but why did you get off the pin to go for your knee if Nyla was just going to kick out literally a split second later?
Yeah, for me, there were 2 lavatory moments throughout this whole pay-per-view. This was one of them. This match was the shits. This was bad. This was really, really bad. I thought this match was not good at all. I think that I didn't have high expectations for it, but I thought it would be okay. And this isn't a match you want to see out of your champion, and it's not like it's all of her fault. I wouldn't put all of the blame on Shida. But it just was not a good match. I think towards the end of the match, Nyla Rose, whether she was legitimately hurt or tired or whatever the case may have been, just simple things like kicking out with some type of authority so the fans can get invested in it, like react to a 2 count. Little things like that matter. And it was just like she was kind of just like rolling her arm over, like lethargically.
Yeah.
I did not think this match was very good. I thought the end with Nyla Rose and Vicky was also very bad, because Vicky essentially came in. Nyla Rose is supposed to be like the beast.
Yeah.
It seems like at every expense they get, they just don't make her out to be that way. I mean, Vicky Guerrero is the manager, and she's belittling Nyla Rose in the middle of the ring, and she just like accepted it.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of this. I thought the whole thing was bad.
Yeah, I agree. And I think some people were expecting a Tessa Blanchard appearance at this point. Didn't get that. So that's another one of the letdowns that people may have saw, like, oh my God, we're getting this big debut. Didn't get it, especially with Tessa. I think the Vicky stuff was like you pointed out, It made no sense. If Vicky's going to slap Nyla Rose and Nyla's supposed to be this like dominating factor in the women's division, sorry, Vicky, you're getting power bombed.
Yeah, something. And
Yeah.
that was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, so I guess Vicky Guerrero is going to go away. Like, I thought that was it. I thought she was going to get power bombed or Nyla would take her out. And then that would be probably the last we saw of Vicky Guerrero in AEW for a little bit. But I guess that's not the case.
Right. I noticed in the chat, someone said that they said that Nyla was shooting at the end, or at least they felt that way. Did you notice anything where Nyla was shooting?
No, I thought Nyla Rose was gassed out. She could move towards the end of the match.
Yeah, people were saying that in the chat too, that Nyla was gassed. She definitely was. Like, that's what happens when you haven't wrestled in God knows how long. And when you were wrestling, it was in squash matches. So this was not a good look. A lot of people have really crapped on the women's division. I've been a big fan of both Nyla Rose and Hikaru Shida, and they did not deliver last night.
Yeah, and a lot of people are always very critical of the women's division in AEW, and they say, why don't you give the women a chance? Why don't you give them a chance? Put them on TV more often. And, I say all the time, they are years behind their competition in NXT and Impact and all the other organizations, because they really are. They need to catch up, and it's going to take a while before they can catch up. So you can't put a product out there on national TV like what we saw last night on pay-per-view, because that's not going to do anything for anybody. That's going to hurt your champion, and it's going to hurt the women's division. So, take your time, let it build up, use the women like Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa and whoever else you have, and pick your spots. Don't have people go out there and do stuff like this.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're still working with NWA is a huge, that's a big thing, because I think NWA knows that AEW needs real help in the women's division. And even though NWA's women's division is very small, they know what they have can help with AEW's women's division. Yeah. And there's one person in NWA that hasn't even shown up yet, where I think might actually help the women's division a lot more, and that's Camille. But that's for a later episode. But let's move on to the next match here. But before we do, thank you everybody for joining the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. If you're new to the channel, you want to donate to the super chat, any dollar amount will do. Thank you for your support on this channel. Any dollar amount, you have a question, we will answer it for you. Also, the merchandise with the promo code SCPB10. Click the link in the description or in the pinned comment for that one. So, we had a tag team match, Ralph. Young Bucks versus FTR. A lot of people hyping this match for years and years and years.
Yeah.
FTR and the Young Bucks will have a match, and everyone will rejoice, was the tweet from both Matt Jackson and Dax Harwood. I believe it was Dax Harwood. This match delivered. This match was awesome.
Yep.
My initial reaction to this match, and I texted this to you, was I think I just watched the best Young Bucks match ever. And I know a lot of people are saying, no, it wasn't. The one with Omega and Page was better. We'll see what Dave Meltzer gives it for a rating. He might give it 6 stars, 6.5 stars. If it was in the Tokyo Dome, it'd be 9 stars. But this match was awesome. I love the tribute to all the different tag teams, from the Dudleys to the Hardys to even DIY, an NXT tag team being featured in an AEW match.
Well, DIY was a huge part of the revival back in NXT. That was one of their biggest rivalries. So, that was definitely cool and interesting to see.
And you know what the funny thing is we talked about this in the prediction show last night, is FTR, FTR thinks FTR stands for follow the rules. The Young Bucks think FTR means forget the rules. When they were wrestling in a traditional sense, the match was slow. It was a slow build. Yeah. But once it got more to the Young Bucks style, it kicked ass.
Well, I think so. This was the story that I thought they were going to tell. So we knew that Matt was injured going into the match. So a lot of it focused around keeping him grounded, keeping him on the mat, making sure they couldn't do their high spots, making sure they couldn't get into their sync where they're doing their tag team wrestling maneuvers and all that type of stuff. So that was the early portion of the match. And as things moved on and as things progressed and as they started to do move after move after move in tribute to various tag teams, all of which you just mentioned, I think the story that ultimately got told was once FTR couldn't beat them in their own game plan in traditional professional wrestling, Cash ultimately decided, okay, I'm going to beat them at their own game, and that was their demise. And I thought that that was a brilliant part of the story that they were trying to tell, because they're
Yes.
saying all along for years has been, no flips, all fists, or whatever, something like that. And ultimately, it was the 450 springboard 450, I think, that was led to the super kick and ultimately their loss. And
Yeah.
shockingly enough, it was something as simple and subtle as a super kick that closed out the night. No crazy Meltzer driver, no crazy backflip, nothing like that. All the stuff that you want to be critical of the Young Bucks for. And if you're not a fan of the Young Bucks, I think this proved that yes, they are capable of working a style other than just what they're working on a weekly basis on Dynamite. But again, FTR, this is why you brought them into AEW, to raise the level of competition, to raise the standard, because they are very good. And I think last night kind of proved to AEW fans that they are one of the best tag teams in the world. And I think that the Young Bucks also silenced some of their critics as well last night. So I thought it was a very, very good match.
And let's also give credit to the Young Bucks too. A lot of people that are anti-Bucks say that Matt Jackson can't sell. He's like Road Warrior Hawk. I mean, Jim Cornette calls him Road Warrior Buck.
Buck Hogan now.
Now he's Buck Hogan? Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I haven't listened to Cornette in a while, but whatever it is, Road Warrior Buck, Buck Hogan, either way, the dude could sell. And yes, I understand his knee is a legit injury, but that played into the story so much more because they couldn't do the Meltzer driver. They couldn't do the flips. And they had to beat them in FTR's game, where FTR needed, as you mentioned, FTR needed to beat the Bucks in the Bucks game. And it was such a role reversal that made this match so much better.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, it really was a good match. Really was. And, someone else pointed this. Someone pointed this in the chat. Miguel, thank you very much for pointing this out because I didn't notice it until now. Talk about the Lakers and Celtics throwback. You have FTR wearing green,
yep,
and you have the Young Bucks wearing black, purple, and gold. Laker colors.
Yep.
Obviously, the Bucks, did you see on Twitter with the Bucks that they did like their own like locker room celebration?
With the Welch's grape juice?
Yeah.
I did see that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean,
so where do you think this goes from here? Do we see an immediate rematch? Do we get Matt, who's supposedly injured? He says it's not that bad. Do we get a split where the FTR takes the titles back and then we get it ultimately decided in like a ladder match between the two? I don't know. Does FTR go away?
This isn't the last we see of these two, but I would keep them away for as long as possible. I don't want this to end up like WWE, where like we see this match 500 times in 3 months. I don't want to see this.
No New Day Uso feud.
No. Also, I don't want this like Orange Cassidy and Jericho, where we got 3 matches within a 2-month span and big shows. I would save it for All Out next year and do a ladder match, because FTR, when they were in WWE, they perfected the ladder match, I think. Regardless if it was with DIY and AOP, the New Day, they had some really good ladder matches. And obviously, a lot of people think that the Young Bucks are like the king of ladder matches. If you thought this match was good, I think the ladder match would be even better. And just let the Bucks have it till now. And then you have a third match a few months down after that. Keep these guys as separated as possible. But you talk about what's next for the Bucks. Did you notice in the celebration in the ring, Kenny comes out and celebrates with the guys, and at the end, you see in the back, in the shadows of the entranceway, is Hangman Page. Did you notice that?
I did not notice that, and the reason for that was I actually fell asleep, and I went back and watched this match this morning. So I did not actually get to see that part because I shut it off right after the match.
That was just storytelling. So you have Hangman Page losing earlier, and he looks, distraught, obviously, because he just lost a big match. He walks out with the referee, comes out here again, and is looking in the shadows at the Elite, who had big wins. Bucks beating FTR, Kenny beating Hangman, and there is poor Hangman. So what do you think is next for Hangman Page?
Well, I thought that Kenny was going to be the guy that lost, and that was going to be the thing that caused him to snap, and then we were going to get the cleaner. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Hangman's the guy that's going to get pushed to the edge. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him.
Yeah.
We know that he is close with FTR, so fear the revelation. This 4 horseman group. Maybe it ends up being FTR, Hangman, and Shawn Spears. That could be possibility.
Maybe. Yep. We'll see. We'll see. And I know some people brought up the fact that Tully wasn't at ringside for this match. Do you think that was an issue?
No, I liked it better. I wanted, Tully's good in his role, and I think that a lot of times FTR works a really good match from a heel standpoint, and he gets involved. But I think for a match this big, I wouldn't want to see somebody get involved in it to, kind of tarnish it in any way.
Right.
It delivered on all levels without somebody getting involved. So,
I agree.
That way.
I agree. All right. So again, everybody, thank you for joining us on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. If you want to donate anything to the Super Chat Party, you can. Have a question for us, we will answer it for you. We're going to try to do a small Q&A after we're done with all these matches here. But if you want to cut the line, you donate to the Super Chat Party and help support the channel. Thank you very much so far. But let's head on to the next match here. It is the Elite Deletion match. The big debuts of Gangrel and the Hurricane.
Who called it?
You called it. You said Gangrel.
It.
Now, I think you were joking when you said Gangrel, but Gangrel shows up in the Elite Deletion match.
No. I had my sources. My reliable sources told me that Gangrel was going to be there, so I had every 100% certainty that he was going to be there.
What source do you have that said that Gangrel was going to be there?
Slice.
That's not a reliable source.
Well, take it for what you will. He was right. Slice knows, right?
That was a complete guess, and you know it. That guy's a BS Twitter account, by the way. But anyway, this match, if we want to talk about worst part of the show altogether, this was it. I agree with Lee Jones, who donated to the Super Chat Party. This match was bad. I couldn't get into it. It was way too long. They had their little moments that could get people to pop, but I'm sorry, this match sucked.
So I mentioned there were 2 lavatory moments of the night. This was the shits number 2 because this was freaking terrible. I did not like this one bit. I'll say this much. I've seen this now, or we've all seen this now from Matt Hardy, woken Matt Hardy, broken Matt Hardy now for however long. It's been going on 5, 6, 7 years. It started at Impact. They tried to do it in WWE. It didn't work. They're doing it again here. It's time to move on. It in my opinion, it doesn't work. We've seen it. It hasn't morphed into something different. It's for a very niche audience. He got to do it. He got to do this part of it. And, Hurricane Helms apparently is now freed from whatever spell after 2 years. I don't know. It's going to have its audience. There are going to be people that enjoyed it and liked it. It's not for me. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
Do you think Sammy should have won?
Yes, I think Sammy should have won. I thought that there were a lot of parts throughout the match that were especially egregious, shooting Roman candles at each other. And everyone's like, oh, well, they did that at Impact. They did it here. I don't care where they did it. I mean, and the other thing that they couldn't decide is if they want it to be portrayed as like happening in real time in like a serious street fight or like a choreographed cinematic thing. Because you had more teleportation with Hurricane and all that other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what other people think, but this was not for me. This is not what I signed up for.
Yeah. I mean,
pro wrestling.
And I understand the times that we're in. People are trying to be creative and do these cinematic matches. We've seen them in WWE. We've seen them in AEW. I think the one thing that really hurt this match more than anything as a cinematic match, especially one where people say Matt Hardy is the brainchild of these cinematic matches, is the lack of music underneath, the lack of a soundtrack until the end. And the soundtrack didn't really make much sense. It was more ominous tones than it was a soundtrack.
And I'm glad you bring that up because a lot of people are going to say, well, Ralph, you like the Boneyard match. And it's not so much that I like the Boneyard match. The Boneyard match worked because it was really well put together and the production was amazing and the the music and everything was great. Like there's good movies and there's good production, and then there's shitty movies and there's shitty production. I don't think this was good from a cinematic standpoint or a wrestling standpoint. I think that it had moments to make people pop, like Senor Benjamin. Okay, that's cool. Great. You got to see him, so that would make some people happy. Gangrel, he got a pretty decent reaction too. Especially if you were somebody who watched during the Attitude Era, was into the Brood like I was, you probably thought that was a cool moment. But a couple of cool moments don't make up for the lack of I don't know, seriousness for this segment itself. I just did not like it.
Yeah, I was not a fan of it myself, but and I think this really hindered the next match. I think it really did, because it took a lot of people out of it. Right when there was a lot of momentum, this comes right after the tag team match. Then you have that match, which didn't deliver and was not good. And then you have the match after, which I think was not a good place on the card. And that is MJF versus Chris Jericho. The match was good. The problem is where it was on the card. So I think some people might be criticizing it a little bit harsh, thinking it wasn't that good, just because it comes right after this Elite Deletion match. And that should have been a match that had like high spots and, action packed. Like if the FTR Bucks match came after the Elite Deletion, that would have been better than MJF and Chris Jericho. Now, one thing I will say is the finish was well done and was very creative. You have MJF trying to use the diamond ring, the dynamite ring, behind Aubrey Edwards' back. Then Aubrey Edwards goes to Wardlow. Hager throws Floyd the Bat at Jericho. MJF pulls an Eddie Guerrero. Aubrey Edwards argues with Jericho. MJF does the roll-up for the win. I thought the finish was good. The match itself was a solid match, but the placement on the card is what hindered it the most.
And here's the thing. I think MJF gets a lot of heat from the diehard AEW fans because of the style he works. A lot of the fans want to see the faster paced matches where you got like the Young Bucks, the style they work, Kenny. That's the style they're accustomed to. MJF is not going to work that style. And when you couple him with a guy like Chris Jericho, who works a slower pace, especially at this stage in his career, it's a little more obvious. And I think that certainly didn't do any favors for exactly what you're talking about here. So it did come later on in the night, this match. It was a much slower worked match. It was more traditional professional wrestling psychology and picking your spots and stuff like that. I don't think it was a bad match. If there was any match that I could say didn't live up to my expectation, it would probably be this one. And that's because, MJF, a lot of people consider him to be one of the best guys in AEW, myself included.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for him to have that one really good breakout match. I think the match he had with, I'm going to forget
Jungle Boy.
Jungle Boy. That was probably his best match, at least off the top of my head, I can think of right now. I didn't think his match with Moxley was great. I thought it was good. I didn't think this match was bad. I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay to good. And you want to see a guy like MJF go out there and steal the show because he is one of the best guys in wrestling right now.
Right.
So whether it was placement on the card, slower pace, I don't know. I thought it was okay. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great by any means, though.
Yeah. I think also, you have MJF, who's 23 at the beginning of his career, and you have Chris Jericho, who's going to be turning 50 tomorrow. He's no longer part of the 18 to 49 demographic, so I don't know if he can be the demo god anymore. But I think him at the tail end of his career, MJF at the beginning of his career, maybe that kind of hurt the match as well. But we'll see where this goes with him joining the Inner Circle now, him and Wardlow. So we'll see where it goes. Does this start the breakup of the Inner Circle? Does this lead to a rematch with MJF and Chris Jericho? We'll see. We'll see, but time will tell. Let's head to the main event, Ralph. And that is Jon Moxley versus Eddie Kingston in the I Quit match. I thought this match was awesome. I think it delivered. I know there's some people that said it was underwhelming. I know there's some people that love this match. To me, it worked. I think the story told was awesome. That's plain and simple. I think the physicalness delivered. I think the story delivered. I think the finish delivered to the point where I think if you're a sympathetic, sensitive person that's easy, like can work tears, you could work tears for Eddie Kingston in that finish. I'm one that never cries, and I almost broke tears for Eddie Kingston in that finish.
Oh, come on. Stop being such a wuss.
What?
Almost broke tears?
It was sad. The guy's been working for 18 years, said he will never quit. And it was to a point where Jon Moxley needed to wrap his neck around barbed wire. It's either quit or die.
The problem and the thing that didn't get you to that point where you were fully invested in embracing your emotions is because he's not a face. Eddie Kingston is supposed to be, and it's almost like a contradiction at some point because you want to root for him because of the story, but you can't root for him because he's kind of like supposed to be a scumbag almost. But that being said, I thought the match itself was good. I think that, there are going to be people that didn't like this, and it all comes down to what you prefer in a professional wrestling match. This is exactly what I expected it to be. The one thing that I hope we see out of Moxley going forward is more traditional professional wrestling matches and not so much, weapons based, I quit, whatever type matches. Cause he's had quite a few of those recently. And, some people are into that, but I think I'd like to see him work more traditional professional wrestling matches now.
Yeah. Someone mentioned in the comment section, there was a lack of blood, a serious lack of blood. Mr. Mike 307 saying that. I don't think
Moxley
there was
bleeding. Moxley,
they were both bleeding,
hanging out of his head.
You have Eddie Kingston bleeding out of his mouth. What more blood do you want? Do you want it to be like CZW blood?
I think that when people think of matches, I quit matches, the most iconic moment off the top of my head would have been Steve Austin passing out after bleeding profusely. So,
well, that was a submission match. That wasn't an I quit match. Well,
whatever. I mean, I think that's maybe what people have in mind when they think of this type of stuff.
Maybe. I mean, if you go way back to the 80s, you might remember the I Quit match in a steel cage between Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard for the United States Championship. That had a little bit of blood to it. Maybe that's where they're talking about that. But again, I thought this match was good. Mr. Mike 307 saying it wasn't to the level of Cody blood. There was blood, but there was now we have Cody blood. Now there's X-Pac heat, there's dusty finishes. Now we have Cody blood.
So you said what, over under yesterday? We said 3 people that would bleed.
Over under 3 matches with color, and I think this was the only one.
No, Dax cut his hand. I mean,
oh, that's right.
He bled.
Yep.
This match, both of them. So that's 3 guys right there. I thought there was one more small thing that happened, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Deeb didn't. Omega and Hangman, there was no blood there. Orange Cassidy and John Silver. I mean, there were some devastating kicks in that match, but no bloodshed there. Cody surprisingly didn't bleed.
Yeah, that was surprising.
Sheeta and Rose, I don't think bled. You mentioned FTR. Dax Harwood cut his hand. Oh, Sammy Guevara had color.
He did.
Although I think
that was worked towards
that
the
was
end.
definitely worked. That spear off the ring, that was definitely worked. And you could tell like they painted something on his head. That was not a cut.
Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention to you, and I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the FTR match, the spear to the outside after they did the, I forget the name of the move off the top of my head, but they were doing the tribute to the Steiner brothers, and then Cash went and did the spear.
Yes.
That was a 6 spot.
That was
I think that was where the match really started to pick up quite a bit towards the tail end of it.
Right. So we talk about this all the way through. A lot of good matches, I think. The question is, which one was match of the night?
Well, I think there are certainly 3 or 4 that you could pick. I thought Darby and Cody, that was my favorite for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. Darby and Cody was good, but close second, FTR and the Young Bucks. Like I said, that was the best Young Bucks match I ever saw. And I think the one with the Golden Lovers in San Francisco at the Walter Pyramid was a great match that if you don't watch New Japan Pro Wrestling, go find it. It was a great match. The Kenny Omega Page match was awesome. This match, I think, was better than both of them.
Was it FTR's best match?
It might have been. It might have been.
If we're gonna, yeah, I would have to go back and watch a lot of their stuff from NXT.
Their ladder match in NXT, that's obviously one to discuss.
Well, they had good matches with America Alpha too.
Yeah, yeah, and their ladder match with the New Day at TLC 2018, or was it 2019? 2019. That was a good match. So either one was good. All right, so we have like 10 minutes left here before we head on out. If you guys want to ask some questions, use the hashtag question before your question, and we will answer them as soon as they come in. If you want to cut the line, you donate to the Super Chat Party, any dollar amount to help support this channel. Thank you all for joining us so far on the Squared Circle Psychobabble. Again, my name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Is there anything else that we need to cover? Final thoughts here on AEW Full Gear?
Not off the top of my head. I thought overall it was a solid pay-per-view.
Yeah. Would you say it was the best pay-per-view of the year?
I don't know. I feel like there's always going to be a bias against what you recently watched. So if like you've just watched a pay-per-view, you'll say, oh yeah, that was definitely the best. But then you can go back and rewatch something that was very good and be like, oh, actually that was good.
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten a chance to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling yet. I heard that was also a good show. So
yeah,
I'm not gonna say this was the best just yet.
Right. I think also you also have the pandemic that really, from like anything before March, people assume it's from last year, but there were some pay-per-views from January to March that were really good. Yeah. You talk about the Wrestle Kingdoms for New Japan. You talk about the Royal Rumble. That was very good this year.
Yep.
I think SummerSlam this year was very good for WWE. Double or Nothing was good this year. But I think as far as AEW's pay-per-views, even Revolution, someone pointed out Revolution was the best. There were some really good matches at Revolution. I don't know if it was the best pay-per-view for AEW, but I think Full Gear at least is the best AEW pay-per-view this year. I don't know if I would say it's wrestling's best pay-per-view. So, all right, let's get to some questions here. Again, if you want to ask a question, use the hashtag question, and we'll answer them. If you want to cut the line, Super Chat Party, any dollar amount will help support this channel. Thank you all for joining us so far. First question comes from Abraham K. Do you guys think Kenny versus Mox happens at Revolution or before to end the year?
I'd imagine it happens at Revolution. When's Revolution? A couple of months?
February 27th.
February. Oh, that's a while, man. You're going to wait that long for a championship match? That's essentially saying Moxley's not going to lose the title to anybody.
Well, probably not, but again, I know WCW gave us Hogan versus Goldberg on an episode of Nitro, but do you give a big match like that
for free? I know. I mean, that's tough though, to keep people invested for 3-4 months. That's a long time, man. That's almost half a year.
Yeah, I agree.
Quarter of a year.
Right. Reverend RV, one of our big supporters on the channel. Thank you very much for your question. Will Pac feud with Eddie Kingston? Yes, easily.
Yeah. Yep.
Definitely.
And that would be certainly a good feud.
Yep. Zero Pile just donated $4.99 to the Super Chat Party. Thank you very much for your donation. He asked, do you think Tony Khan is in some partnership with NWA, caused Serena Deeb to sign with AEW, but has the NWA title? I think this has to be worded differently. Do you think the fact that Serena Deeb signed with AEW and there's that partnership, do you think that leads to her winning the NWA title?
It certainly could. I mean, eventually that title's got to go back.
Yes.
That's an NWA title. It's not like it's an AEW championship.
Right.
Not to mention, when you have two titles. So here's the thing. AEW does not have a very deep women's division. If you have two titles, that essentially means you're splitting the top women's wrestlers and having them feud for those titles, rather than solely focusing your top 6 on, producing good weekly content, good weekly matches, and chasing the AEW championship. So
yeah,
it actually kind of is almost a negative.
Maybe.
And a little, it's a negative for the long-term goal, I think.
Yeah. I think the title is going to eventually go back to Thunder Rosa anyway. The question is, do they have that match on NWA TV or AEW TV? And I think as long as As long as NWA doesn't have power on YouTube and they're doing that series on Fight TV with UWN, that's where the partnership continues, I think. So, next question from Darlene Bambai, another big supporter of our channel. She asked, what's next for Lance Archer?
What's next for him?
I hear in the next coming weeks, Davey Boy Smith Jr. becomes a free agent.
That's interesting.
I know AEW has a ton of tag teams, but Killer Elite Squad against the Elite makes so much damn sense in AEW.
It's weird because when AEW just formed, and it seems like it was, I mean, it's only a little over a year or so now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about how thin their top tier talent is, and now it's like they almost have for one show a week, 2 hours, they have a lot.
Yeah.
So to find spots for these guys, I mean, look at Shawn Spears at the beginning of the formation of AEW. A lot of people felt like he was going to be a top tier guy. And I'm not saying he's not, but it's not like he's featured every week in a prominent role. Same can be said for Lance Archer. Brian Cage is kind of hit or miss. So I don't know.
Yeah.
There's no clear path for him.
Right. Next question comes from Austin NY28, another big supporter of the channel. Thank you very much for your support and, following and commenting on many of our videos prior to this. His question is, will the next Young Bucks versus FTR match be for the tag titles, or will the Bucks lose them beforehand? Who do you think the Bucks drop to besides FTR? If FTR do not get the titles before the Bucks, I say best friends. They're the last team left that have gotten a lot of recognition but don't have the gold. SC already had them. FTR already had them. The Bucks just got them. Best friends, I think, are next to pull the trigger, or Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah, Santana and Ortiz should definitely start competing a little bit more in the tag division. Jurassic Express, we haven't seen a whole lot from them, but eventually you got to think like the feel-good story when maybe the crowds come back. That could certainly happen.
Yeah. All right, next question comes from Sentinel. What are your thoughts on the AEW Games YouTube special announcement on Tuesday? Do you even play video games anymore?
I am retired.
You are retired from gaming.
I was big into Call of Duty for a while. Once I had my daughter, there wasn't as much time for video games. So
yeah,
I have not even upgraded from my Xbox 360, to be quite honest with you, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, I always
used to play quite a bit of video games.
Yes, I have a Nintendo Switch. When I was a kid, and Ralph could attest to this, I was a couch potato. I would play video games from morning to night, and they were usually sports games or wrestling games.
I'm excited for it, but unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to have much time to participate in playing it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much for joining us on this live episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. My name is Michael Valenti. Joining me is Ralph Valenti. Thank you all for joining us. Oh, $4.99 donation before we head out. Thank you again, Zero Pile. I think there's a partnership coming with Impact Wrestling. Reason why I think is because, and of course, reason why is because Don Callis being on AEW multiple times. What do you think?
I think Don Callis will certainly be there to be the manager of Kenny Omega going forward. I don't see anybody from the singles competition or singles division from Impact going to AEW anytime soon.
Right.
Maybe some tag teams.
Right. I apologize for that little internet hiccup. Don't know what happened there, but thank you all for joining us. Thank you to Lee Jones for your donations. Thank you to Zero Pile for your donations. If you want to donate to the channel or support us in any way, we have merchandise on sale. We have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have hoodies, we have blankets. 10% off with the promo code SCPB10. Link is in the description or in the pinned comment. Thank you all for joining us. I think AEW Full Gear was a great success and possibly the best pay-per-view of the year. We'll see you all on the next episode. For Ralph Valenti, my name is Michael Valenti. Thank you for watching the Squared Circle Psychobabble.